I did this last year, and it got some traction, and I thought, I was thinking about it this morning. I thought, you know what? It's the All Star break. I'm going to revisit this. Last year, I did a video on which of the teams that have never won a Stanley Cup is going to win a Stanley Cup first. And there are people who still comment on it because it's an interesting topic. And it's worth mentioning because now Vegas is on the list. Vegas is a part of this conversation. And I'm going to go through each team, and then we'll discuss where they're going forward and which one seems to be the closest. St. Louis has made the playoffs 41 times. They made the playoffs this past year, and they were out in the second round, and that's after they were out in the third round the year before. So there's at least a positive aspect to this in that they're not out in the first round either time. Buffalo is next on the list. They've been in the playoffs 29 times, but the last time they were in the playoffs was 2011 when they were eliminated in the first round. So that hurts. Vancouver has been in the playoffs 27 times. The last time they were in the playoffs was 2015. They were eliminated in the first round that year. That was Willie Desjardins' first year in Vancouver. They had an overachieving kind of year, and it was a bounce back for some of their players after Tortorella, which didn't really mix in Vancouver. Washington, they've been in the playoffs 27 times. They've recently made the playoffs. 2017, of course, was the last time they made the playoffs, which was last year. And they've had 3 straight second-round defeats. And we're at the point with Washington where the question is, are they ever going to do it? And we'll get into that. Arizona, they've been in the playoffs 19 times. The last time they were in the playoffs was 2012. They made it to the conference final that year, but that was 6 years ago. San Jose, they've been in the playoffs 18 times. They were eliminated in the first round this past spring. Ottawa, they've been in the playoffs 16 times. They were eliminated in the conference final this past spring, and it doesn't look like they're going back this year. Nashville, they've been in the playoffs 10 times. They made it to the finals, of course, last spring. Minnesota, 7 times. They were eliminated in the first round last spring. Florida last made the playoffs in 2016, where they were eliminated in the first round after winning their division. Columbus, 2017, they made it to the first round. Columbus has never made the playoffs 2 years in a row. They're trying to break that streak this year. Winnipeg's made the playoffs twice. Once as Atlanta, once as Winnipeg. And they were out in the first round in 2015, the last time they were in. Vegas, this is their first year. We have no playoff history with them whatsoever. So there's 4 things that I think matter. Okay. Scoring, and I'll also incorporate into that depth at center. Defense, which is both strength and its depth. Goaltending is important, and the team's direction. So is the team headed up? Is the team headed down? And then we'll go ahead and we'll award 4 points altogether. We'll try to figure this out, and this will be fun. St. Louis, they've got scoring. They've got defense. I think their goaltending is good enough to win either Jake Allen or Carter Hutton this year. And their direction, they are in a contention position. They look relatively good. And there's no reason to think that St. Louis can't make a run. So I'll give St. Louis a 4 out of 4 based on they have all the pieces that they need. Buffalo, scoring, they don't have the depth. Defense, they're not there. Goaltending, Leonard's good, so I'll give them a point on that one. Their direction, well, Jack Eichel gives them hope for the future, so I'll give them a point on direction. So I'll go with 2 for Buffalo. Vancouver, scoring is an issue. They have Besser, they have Horvat, they have Berchi. They have some veterans, and but still, their scoring is bottom 5 in the NHL, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. Defense, that defense core, there's some decent pieces there, but it needs some work. Goaltending is not where it needs to be. In the future, it should be if Thatcher Demko continues to develop. Their direction, I think, is fine, because I think they will go up in a couple of years. But the problem is, right now, they're a 1 in terms of being able to win a Stanley Cup. Okay. Washington. Scoring, not a problem. You got Ovechkin, you got Backstrom, you got Kuznetsov, you got a bunch of really decent weapons. Defense, well, Carlson's there now, and there's a win-now attitude that's going to be there in Washington because Carlson may not be there after this season. Goaltending, I like Braden Holtby. I know he didn't look great in last year's playoffs, but I still like Braden Holtby. I still think he's good enough. Direction, well, Gravity was supposed to take over this season, and it hasn't. They've actually had a very solid season. They're first in their division, uh, which makes them the number 2 seed in the East because, of course, top 2 seeds get the top 2 spots, or the top 2 division winners get the top 2 seeds. So I'm going to give Washington a 4. Arizona. Scoring, no. Not yet. They've got a lot of good young players who may develop that top tier scoring. Defense, no. Goaltending, also no. Direction, I don't know what direction Arizona's headed in, but for right now, I have to give them a goose egg. Because I don't see, even with the prospects and all the young pieces, I still don't see a cup in their future. San Jose. The scoring is there, with the young scorers coming up and the decent depth they've got. Their blue line is always solid. Their goaltending is good enough. Jones doesn't have tremendous stats. Dell's looked a little more human lately, but I still think they're good enough. Direction, I'll deduct on here only because I think finding somebody who's going to take over when Thornton's out, when Thornton's career's done, I just don't know. I don't know that I see San Jose as getting closer to a Stanley Cup. Ottawa, well, scoring, you've got Hoffman, you've got Stone, you've got some decent pieces. The depth I have issues with. The blue line after Carlson is iffy, and goaltending is iffy. Direction, we don't know what's going on with Ottawa now. Word has it that we could see a new building being built as soon as 5 years from now. That's a long ways off, and groundbreaking's a ways off. They have a 50-acre piece of land that they can build on and get a new building, and it'll be downtown Ottawa, and it'll be great. But it's years out. So Ottawa's going to have a 0 as well, just because things just right now look so dire. Nashville. Scoring, yep. Defense, fantastic. Goaltending, pretty darn solid. Direction is pretty great. David Poyle's got a lot of good prospects coming up as well. It's a good team. There's youth, there's veterans, there's everything. Nashville gets a 4. Minnesota. The scoring's there. The defense is good. The goaltending, well, yeah. Dubnik's kind of looked human this year. Direction, there's a lot of good prospects in Minnesota. I'm going to go ahead and give Minnesota a 4. I'll give them a 4. Florida, scoring, no. The depth isn't there. Defense, much the same. I don't think the depth on the blue line is there. Goaltending, I like Reimer. I like Luongo, but, I'm not sure that they have a long-term starter. And I don't know that they have one in the system coming up. Direction, I think it's there. I think Dale Talon can turn things around. So I'll give Florida, I'll give them a 1.5. Remember, this is for a Stanley Cup. This isn't just for, are they going to make the playoffs? This is, do I think they can win a Stanley Cup? Columbus, scoring, yes. Defense is solid. Goaltending, Bobrovsky's fantastic. Direction, Kekalainen seems to have this team on its way to something better than what they've been. So I'll give them a 4. Winnipeg, scoring, solid. The one thing I will say with Columbus that's a problem might be depth down the middle, but if Dubois continues his development, that could be fine too. Okay. Winnipeg's a tough one. The scoring's there. The defense, I'm not entirely sold on the defense. The goaltending's been very good with Hellebuck. Their direction, they've played very, very well this year, and there's no reason to think it won't be sustained. I'll give them a 3. Vegas, who would have thought we'd be here? Vegas has scoring. Their defense, I don't think is elite, and I think that defense over a 7-game series where they're playing the same team every night, I think that could be an issue. Goaltending is excellent, and their direction, well, they're a first-year team, so the fact that I'm giving Vegas 3 points on a Stanley Cup scale. So, okay, that being considered, let's take a look here at the most likely, based on the ones I gave 4s. Remember, Vegas got a 3. So of the 5, most likely, I'm giving Washington a 5 because they've been eliminated in the second round 3 times in a row, and I don't think that their roster right now is as strong as the one they had last year. So that's my issue with Washington. I would put Minnesota at 4. I think they would have a very tough matchup in the first round should they make it, and I don't know that while I'm not deducting a point on their goaltending, I just don't know that it matches up well against other Central Division foes. For 3, I'm going to put Columbus because Columbus hasn't gone on a run. They've never got out of the first round. We don't know what they're made of, and there's been injury issues all year. They're finally coming out of that, and yet, I look at Columbus right now, and it's like, well, they'd play Pittsburgh in the first round, and which is why Washington's an because they can't beat Pittsburgh, and that's throughout their history. They just can't beat Pittsburgh. So of the 2, I would put St. Louis at number 2 and Nashville at number 1. Based on that Stanley Cup final last year, based on I think they have better goaltending than St. Louis. I think their offensive depth is fantastic. Their depth on the blue line is pretty much without question. The fact that they could trade off a Girard to Colorado, who's been a pretty good defenseman for Colorado, and that they don't bat an eye about it, and you don't hear Nashville fans saying, "Oh, we're going to regret losing Girard." Nashville is in the catbird seat, and of all of the teams that haven't won a Stanley Cup, they are the most likely. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.